It's How I Make Money with Andy Beadle. We are live. This is the How I Make Money podcast. I'm Andy Beadle. Our guest today is Yarrow Magdalena. She is the owner, founder, proprietor of Yarrow Digital, based in Scotland. And in addition to her agency work, she's got a couple of things I'm very excited to talk about because they are, I don't want to say unusual, but especially from business standpoint in the United States, where it's, hustle, hustle, hard, hard, all that kind of stuff all the time. It's really neat. She's got and is the leader of a group called the Embodied Business Community. We're going to talk about that. And she has what I think is the most amazingly awesome free giveaway on her website, which is a 30-page book on your body as a anti-capitalist business mentor. And I cannot wait to hear about that. So thank you for coming on board. Yarrow, tell us a little bit about the digital agency part to get started, what you focus on. I know you help a lot of small businesses really get started. And you've got a very unique approach to that. And I think people would love to hear about it. I was certainly fascinated by it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk. You're right. I'm bringing a lot of different things together in my work, and I think that's what I enjoy about working for myself the most. My agency, Yarrow Digital, started really purely as a web design project. I was making WordPress sites for people who are just in the first few years of their businesses. So for many people, it was kind of like their first website, their first big investment. And I really love that work. I think there's so much excitement in really the seed and the idea and getting people on the road in a way. And from there, it grew into also offering tech support, software consultations. I'm really into creating software systems that are beautiful and sustainable and affordable and really make life easier. I have offered social media support for a couple of years. I'm not on social media myself anymore, so I don't tend to do that work anymore. But I'm now also hosting a community called the Embodied Business Community, and I offer mentoring sometimes. And so, yeah, I'm weaving a lot of different things together. I have a second business called Daydream Walls. Both of my businesses have a podcast as well.
Okay.
And that other business is more around body work and ritual. And I've trained as a massage therapist and movement facilitator. So I think this is where the body comes in for me, is to give
Right.
context as to why that is important in my agency work as well. Yeah.
Well, and I'm going to kind of break a little bit from how we do episodes here because so my background is in behavioral psychology, and I was a university professor for about a decade, and it was in the early days of machine language learning and machine vision and AI and all that kind of jazz. And one of the things that I think is not maybe obvious to the public at large is one of the earliest and most central questions about consciousness and really artificial intelligence was the idea, could you really have consciousness without having a body? And that idea, so when I hear the word embodiment, I think, oh yeah, it's this very important and interesting philosophical, psychological problem of, can you really have a mind that isn't part of this thing that operates out in the world and does stuff and gets sensory input and all that? And the idea of taking body work, as you call it, right, and then integrating that with something that is just as kind of people, oh yeah, digital agency, ads, marketing, like that crossover is endlessly fascinating to me. And I would love to hear how you kind of came to the idea and how that has kind of made itself manifest in your work.
Yeah, of course. So I started working in e-commerce companies as a teenager after school, and I'm 35 now. To give context of when the internet entered my life, I think I got Facebook when I was like 16 or something, and I had MySpace back then.
Right. Oh yeah.
So I'm not that young. So I kind of grew up with it, and I I think
Ow.
something. Oh,
I've just been attacked by a cat here. I apologize to our audience.
okay.
Usually this fellow is upstairs. So Tux is now joining us for the episode. He managed to sneak down. This is our latest rescue. He's a man with a very solid body who likes to jump. So anyhow, back to MySpace and getting started on the internet. Yeah, social media, the early days were very interesting and very weird, weren't they? Yeah.
They were,
Agreed.
absolutely, yeah. And so I think when I started this business in my late 20s, something that I saw for people coming up over and over again is a real sense of overwhelm of asking, I know I want to do this. I often work with service providers like herbalists or health practitioners or artists or writers, and they feel so connected to their vision and why they do what they do. But they also often feel really, really overwhelmed with where to begin, choosing the right spaces to inhabit online, coming up with offers that are sustainable, that are accessible to the audience, that are financially rewarding and emotionally rewarding for them. And so I began to wonder, why don't we listen to our bodies more? Because at the end of the day, like what else is there than to really have fun and live a healthy and joyful and pleasurable life? And I think in this workbook that you mentioned, I'm really inviting people to consider what's happening in their body as more of a guide. I think
Right.
I do absolutely believe in hiring experts and getting guidance and working with a mentor. I've made amazing experiences that, but I also see a tendency in our industry to say, hey, follow this 3-step blueprint to
Right.
get to 6 figures that will solve all your problems. And I think actually there's so much more to that. I don't actually believe that there's a blueprint that works for everyone. And I think that we have kind of let go of listening to our intuition and our bodies. And I know that it can sound really wishy-washy, but
Right.
I'm someone who had a burnout at the age of 24 because I was studying full-time while also working full-time for an e-commerce company. And I was just done. I was so tired. I wasn't creative anymore. My whole body was aching. I wasn't sleeping really well. And I was just really not listening to these signals. And I now allow myself in my business to really be led by what is fun and what is sustainable to me. So this has looked like different things over the years, but in the beginning I was always available. I never thought that I could afford, in air quotes, to turn any bigger project down. So
Right.
I had clients in the US. I took a lot of calls till late in the night. I often work weekends. And I now have much better boundaries around my time. I don't do calls on Mondays and Fridays. So there's just a 3-day window in my week where I'm on Zoom, for example. I try to limit my screen time. Last year, I've become really mindful of my social media use and tried to think about what it did to my time and energy, but also to my creativity. And I think I'm seeing a real shift towards returning to longer form content, like these kinds of interviews or really rich blog posts. I see more people writing books for their business, which I did last year. And that's exciting to me. I think the documentary, The Social Dilemma, for example, really speaks to a lot of what all of us are experiencing at
Oh,
the moment.
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's interesting to me. And I think we are so often reaching kind of for the next shiny thing, the next program or the next mentor, when actually we have so much wisdom in our bodies already that we can utilize in really beautiful ways.
Yeah. And I think, you've said a lot there that I really agree with and I think is so important for especially new business owners to understand. I this is my 4th business. One of the businesses I had was a gym, and one of the things that people would come to you with whatever their goal, what they said their goal was, and then there was a lot of work to figure out what was really behind that. And that's okay, right? There's nothing the matter with that. And somebody would come and she would say, "Oh, I want to lose 50 pounds," and in working with that person, my answer was always, well, why? I mean, are you what? Oh, well, I want to be able to go take a walk with my kids. My answer was, great. You don't need to join this gym. Go home and take a walk with your kids, and then take a nap. Do that every day. You'll be happy. So finding those goals and really making them be about what speaks to you is a lot harder than it looks.
Yeah.
And there's so much noise, I guess I'll call it, and so much stuff designed to attract our attention that you do get into this, in getting and spending, we lay waste our powers, right? We're just continuously doing that. And who I consider to be the wisest entrepreneurs I know are the ones who are in it for the freedom, right? It's that freedom you've talked about. Hey, I'll take calls Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's time where I'm willing to be in that kind of service. I need Monday and Friday to do other types of work. And structuring a business around that, I think, is not captured in a lot of these blueprint ideas. That said, there are a lot of principles that are, I mean, you need to make enough money to pay your expenses. That's a basic rule of business, right? So I love that idea of saying, hey, listen to, there are as many ways to be successful in a business as there are people who run them, and to learn to listen to how you're going to be successful. I think that's such a powerful, it's a huge message, and we don't hear a lot of it, to be honest with you. So that's really neat. How did you end up bridging that gap? I'm sitting here going, okay, so we're building some websites. That's great. And obviously that issue of sustainability is huge for new businesses, that it cannot be their full-time job to do this, right? And you're doing body work. And then one day you woke up and said, all right, we need to have a whole community around this. I know the community's closed right now, and you do have a wait list up. So I do encourage people to go look at that. That'll be in the show notes. But tell me a little bit about this Embodied Business Community and the kind of work you and the members of that community do together.
Yeah, sure. So I think what I found in my own explorations, but also in working with people one-on-one, is that there's a lot of issues that we bump against that we share together, right? Whether you're an artist or a herbalist or some kind of other business provider, really anything, I think we all deal with imposter syndrome at some point, usually. We all deal with, I'm speaking for my community when I say we. This might not apply globally. That's okay.
I'm right there with you. Yeah.
We all might bump against issues with pricing, thinking that in a way we would like to earn more, but are we outpricing people? Is that ethical? We all deal with when does my marketing become manipulative, or when is it just really effective? We all deal with finding work-life balance and relating to goals and numbers in a way that feels energizing and exciting rather than just defeating, I would say. So these are, I think, shared issues that I identified. And then I also saw that I really needed community. I don't know a ton of business owners in my personal life. And I knew that I really was thriving when I found ways to really make time to work on my business rather than just in it. And I think that's also so true when you're starting out. There are these key themes that we're all meeting, and then we all also so often find ourselves really head down in the work with clients, or in doing the next thing, or writing the next book. And we don't often make enough time to kind of look around ourselves and see like, oh, is this still working for me? Could there be a better system? Do I want to, brainstorm this with someone else who's maybe in the same spot as me? And I was in a number of group programs myself when I was starting out, and I found that they were often pretty fast paced. So I got a lot out of 8-week programs, but I really found that actually these bigger questions are something I'm revisiting each season, and these conversations are conversations that I want to continue over time. So I created a program that's a year long. It's a year-long commitment. We have about 3 to 4 live calls every month, so almost every week, with small breaks occasionally. We have a core course that has 10 modules, and then we do group support sessions. We have themed workshops. What I really enjoy is that we have co-working spaces. So people usually come to them to do the boring work that just never gets done. So they come with their bookkeeping or their, scheduling, social media posts, whatever, the things that they usually kind of put off. And we do them together. So we open Zoom. Everyone says what they're committing to that afternoon, and then we all do it quietly. And at the end, we check back in to see if we have already done what we have set out to do. And surprisingly, I hear from people over and over again that they're getting more done in that chunk of time that they did the whole week. So that's really exciting to see. And
that is cool.
Yeah, it's cool. I really think
love it.
Group accountability can be great in that way. And then we have a network on Mighty Networks. I really love Mighty Networks as a platform, software-wise. I'm not on Facebook anymore. I found that too distracting for communities or groups. And so it's its own space, and people really share a lot in there. They share the drafts of their sales pages, the letter they're drafting to set a boundary with a client. We talk about pricing. So a lot of stuff that's actually vulnerable in a way. And we also really have conversations around our bodies, and there are a lot of body workers in there, which is exciting. So we speak about going with the seasons, changes in our energy levels. All of us over Christmas have really collectively gone into this winter hibernation
Right.
period and really said, like, let's hold ourselves accountable to that and not be online all day, every day over Christmas. That's ridiculous. You know, it's time
Hmm.
to switch off. It's been a tough year, tough as fuck. So
Yeah.
holding
That's the
ourselves
truth.
accountable to taking some real time off. And yeah, I really enjoy it. I think it's meeting people at that point in their business in a way that's affordable. It offers a lot of support and guidance. It
Hmm.
also asked a lot of self-responsibility, I think, from the people, because I'm not holding their hand. They get a really beautiful kind of onboarding experience, a lot of guidance of how to navigate the space, how to work with the course. But at the end of the day, they have to pace themselves through the year and show up for what is meaningful to them. And
Hmm.
of course, there is a small fraction of people who sign up thinking it is right for them, and they kind of do steam and they might not make as much of it. And I think that is true for any online program, to be honest. But I think most of the people really are engaged and like getting a lot out of it. So I'm happy that I found a way to create something that offers such a big framework in a way that's relatively affordable. And I think that's with quantity, of course. We have about 80 people in there at the moment.
Okay.
Like I said, not everyone is engaged all the time, but we always have a good group together for Zoom calls. And there's a sense of like remembering faces and really getting to know people over time, which I enjoy. Yeah.
Well, and I can imagine, and you are based in Scotland,
Mhm.
our first international guest. I'm just excited about that. I mentioned that earlier. And, you know, it has been a rough year,
Mhm.
especially for small business. So I can imagine having that space to come to as a small business owner, especially anything that's either creative or personal services oriented, where,
Mhm.
you know, what does the future look like? What, you know, is there going to
Mhm.
be performance again? Can I go get a massage? I mean, all of this stuff, you know, can
Mhm.
I get acupuncture? You know, the folks who own those businesses to have, I mean, it's got to be a lifeline in a lot of ways
Mhm.
to have someone to reach out to who gets it,
Yeah.
who feels that uncertainty, and maybe, you know, together you can generate some optimism. I, you know, in the US, a lot of the business culture here is very, like you say, blueprint, you know, hustle hard, this, that, and the other. And I think when people hear things like listen to your body, it sounds kind of woo woo to them. But at the same time, these are the same people who will get up after sitting hunched over their computer for
Mhm.
5 hours and be like, oh, my neck really hurts. It's like, listen to your body, right? I mean, this is just so
Yeah.
not hard, you know, and it's not, you know, you can make it however you want it to be, but
Mhm.
listening to your body is a good idea. And that thing about winter, I was talking to my wife, and I was very fortunate as a child. My father was a naval officer, and I managed to basically grow up in Hawaii.
Mhm.
Little did I know, when I moved to Rhode Island and Michigan later in life, that there would be no sun for weeks at a time. And that, you know, that is just so, I mean, I have a UV light over here for the winter. So all of that stuff, which you say it and people go, oh, Pshaw, just tough it out. It's like, well, why? What possible reason could you have to punish yourself like that, you know?
Yeah.
So the fact that you're organizing activity and attention to this stuff for business owners, you know, I think that's a real, sadly, that's a real distinct approach in the marketplace that you don't see a lot of,
Mhm.
and we could probably use a lot more of. To be honest with you, I think people destroy their health, they destroy their emotional well-being. You know, I've always said, when you go to work for yourself, you know, you're in danger of working for somebody who's both a lunatic and a workaholic,
Mhm.
and that's just no fun.
Mhm.
And using fun as a guide is really not a bad idea. You know, it's really
Yeah.
not. You know, why
Yeah.
else would you go do this? You know,
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's very interesting. One thing that struck me in looking through your website before the show was that great 30-page giveaway. And I wanted to download it, but I decided not to, because I wanted to just hear you talk about
Mhm.
it before I look at it.
Thank you.
Um, and I'm going to get the title exactly right, because I absolutely love this. And here we go, people. This is where you want to be, at yarrowdigital.com under the free button. Our Bodies as Anti-Capitalist Business Mentors. I love the title, and I like it because there's a lot there. You're in business. Obviously, you're in business to make enough to feed yourself and take care of yourself. So you're not against work. You're not against commerce. But I like this idea of your body as an anti-capitalist business mentor. And if you don't mind, I'm sure you get asked about it all the time, but I would love to hear the central idea behind that and how you help people apply that when you talk to them about their businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, not everyone will feel attracted to that, and that's okay. And I think I also want to say before I get into the more woo stuff that I don't want to downplay the need to make money and the joy in making money in any way. That's not really what I'm here to do. And I think, also making money can be fun. It can be part of the joy of why you work. But I think where I most disagree with capitalism, if I imagine capitalism to be kind of its own entity and we're having a conversation, one
Sure.
of our big disagreements would be that people need scarcity and competition in order to be creative. I actually see in myself when I'm really in my body, the best way for me to be creative and come up with really good stuff is when I'm relaxed, I feel safe, I know that my basic needs are being met. I feel playful, and I know that I can engage with what is available to me in a really playful, fun way. That's when I
Mm-hmm.
have my best ideas. And it's also
Sure.
when I really make stuff happen. I don't feel that I actually always need time pressure to do things or to get something done. And I think when I notice that I do need time pressure, then it tells me that maybe I'm just not that keen to do the work that I have to do. And then there's maybe a bigger question of why do I have, work on my plate in my business that isn't joyful for me, that I'm not getting up and enjoying doing.
Right.
So this is the disagreement, and I think I really want to credit Marissa Correa in parts to this. She is at cyclicalbody.com, and she does a lot of work around cyclical living in your body, as the name suggests. And I've been in her programs, and I also trained as a death doula 2 years ago, which is not a field that I'm working in, but I found it really interesting together with studying philosophy, which I'm doing now, to think about how we relate to grief and periods of stagnation or dying down.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the key ideas in this workbook is how do we relate to these things? What does it feel in our bodies when something is stagnating in our business? Or can we maybe step away from this idea of linear growth, of always being in summer, always being out there, and
Right.
actually relate to periods like this, like the pandemic, where we're spending so much more time inside, and a lot of things that we have taken for granted are being stripped away in a way that generates something really beautiful for the future when it is spring again and we're coming back
Right.
out and creating new ideas. And I think something is making this time so difficult, and again, it's not to downplay the real struggle of being in a pandemic and experiencing uncertainty around our own health and the well-being of the people that we love. But I think one thing that makes it hard is this massive resistance against downtime and
Mm-hmm.
really being in winter and being present with ourselves and confronting ourselves in a way. I think that can be so uncomfortable when you're from a young age trained to just go to a supermarket and consume and distract yourself and be on your phone and kind of avoid looking at shit that you need
Right.
to compass in some way. So yeah, I think the workbook is inviting people to think about what that means, what their body is telling them about their relationship to success, what it means to tell the truth. I think there are a lot of narratives in the online marketing space that are not always manipulative intentionally, but to give you an example, I see a lot of sales pages that are like, buy this if you're ready to X, Y, Z. And they're very beautiful things that
Right.
make total sense. Buy this if you're ready to make more money, if you want more clients. And, of course, that's what we want. And then there's also this is not for you if you're not ready to confront your money blogs, you're not ready to take the next step and put yourself out there. And I think I understand the attention. We want to be clear on who this is for and who this is not for. But in a way, we're shaming people and we're not always necessarily telling the truth. I'm
Right.
seeing a lot of really simplified stories of there's this template for engaging Instagram posts that's like, I had this really big problem. Say I had really low self-esteem. And then, this is all the different ways in which this has affected me. Then I started working with this modality, and now I basically dance into the sunset with the fairies every night. So if you also want to do that, buy my program. And I think I see what's going on here, right? I think this
Right.
can be the truth, but sometimes there's more to that. There's more complexity, and there isn't necessarily like a one size fits all solution. And like, what would happen if we were all more honest and said, I'm doing this new thing. I really feel it's working for me. I would love to share that with you. It's not a quick fix. You're going to have to do the work as well. And I'm holding you accountable to that and inviting you into my program to see if this can make a difference in your life the way it has done for me. So I really believe in this. And I wonder if we maybe are all shifting more in that direction of being more honest with each other in that way and being present and grounded in our bodies. But I think it's a process. Like, I can see why the first version is working much better at the moment. And I don't blame people for utilizing that because it does work.
Right, right. Well, I think a lot of those questions that, that we ask ourselves, they're very, it's interesting how challenging they are to answer. I'm a huge fan of therapy. Did therapy for like 8 years. Still didn't fix me, but that's okay. But I remember being asked, well, what do you want? And my answer was, how should I know? And the answer was genuine. That was not, I wasn't being glib. It was a gee, I have no idea. And why would I even have any idea about that at all? And at the time, that was very much a direct consequence of not asking the question, asking the question quickly and not waiting for the answer, if that makes sense. Gee, what do I want? I don't know. I'm going to go watch Starship Troopers for the 9 millionth time or whatever. And I think that the idea of, I guess I don't want to call it slowing down, but there's a big move, it's especially right now in entrepreneurial circles, talking about mindfulness and that kind of idea. And I think it gets applied in some pretty weird contexts, but just listening for a few minutes is a great idea. And you learn so much of yourself and of other people and all of that kind of stuff. I think it's very important. From the standpoint of capitalism and business, I think a lot of people fail to understand that, the notion of what we call capitalism very much postdates people being in business by many thousands of years. And, there's a great book called Shop Class as Soulcraft, talking about the idea of the importance of having physical skills, because they are things you can get better at. And your progress is measurable over time, and that's done through intentional practice. My handwriting is awful. It has been since I was a kid. Clearly, I have not engaged in any intentional practice around that. However, I do play music, and I have for quite some time. And over time, you can see you get, the piano playing gets better, or, my painting gets better, or, any of that. And I think helping business owners connect to that sense of building skills as a method of building character and writing your life story, that's huge. And that skill can be the operation of a system. I've got a friend whose wife owns a septic tank cleaning business here in the United States, and he loves thinking about the growing of that business and solving these problems because he's a system tinkerer. And he builds it, and then I want to make it better and better and better. And it's not, talk to him, it's not really about the money. For him, it's the levers. We were able to do this and that happened, then we helped these people. And all of that, I think you can listen to discussions about the desire to be successful. There's nothing the matter with that, but ideally you would know what that would mean for yourself, because it's something different for everybody. And I think that's really, really important. So tell me a little bit about what did the last year mean for your business and for your community? And now that we've got some glimmer of hope in vaccine rollout and all that kind of stuff, what are you excited about for the coming year?
Oh God, I just want to see my family. That was the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah, I hear you.
So I live in Scotland, and my family is in Germany, as a side note. So I think the first few months were really stressful. I think really like I was spending a lot of time just lying on the floor with my dogs, resting and napping and refreshing the news like crazy, speaking to people
Right.
on Zoom. And I did have quite a few cancellations in the first few months because I had contracted to make websites for local businesses that were closing down or were, needed to temporarily be out of business. And so that was a pretty quick shift. And I kind of shifted to invest more time and energy into the embodied business community, which I really am so happy I did. It was already pretty great, but it didn't have as
Right.
much live content and it wasn't as big as it was then. And I also didn't have the same structure around it as I have now. So now it opens 3 times a year. The next time is going to be late April. And we have this continuous rolling container of live content together. And it was a little bit simpler back then. So I invested a lot in that community and I'm really glad I did. I also wrote a book for my other business, which is called Ritual, Simple and Radical Practices for Enchantment in Times of Crisis. And it's a really simple guide to just looking at your day-to-day life and thinking about how it could be more fun, basically, and really widening our understanding of what rituals are. I'm not suggesting that people climb mountains under the full moon at a special date and then they brew this particular herbal tea or something. I'm just like, hey, are you tired often? Have you considered drinking overnight nettle tea every night? That could be fun. Or when was the last time that you really looked into the mirror and like appreciated the beauty of aging and your body changing? Like, what does that feel like? So I think it's a book about really simple stuff that has landed really well because it came at the right time. And I had less work to do, less one-on-one work in spring. So I wrote it over 3 months as part of a group program that I was in by my friend Sophie Dale, who's amazing. And so I think that has also kind of given me more confidence in that business. I think writing a book is a beautiful thing if you're so inclined to do that.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, I really enjoy shifting towards long form content and deepening conversations rather than just kind of broadcasting small snippets on Instagram every day.
Sure.
I spent more time on both my podcasts. They're called the DIY Small Business Podcast, and then Daydream Wolves is the other one. And I think my one-on-one work has really kind of came back beautifully since the summer, and it's just different conversations, right? I think I
Sure.
support
Yeah.
people much more in being adaptable. We talk a lot more about systems and keeping things affordable and having a sense of there being a lightweight business that can, ride the waves.
Right. Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, so yeah, that has shifted. But it's been good in a way. I'm really glad. I've worked less. I had a little bit more time to myself. I've approached marketing in a different way. I think if I had to pick a few keywords, it's depth that I would say was important. Creativity, adaptability. Those
Mm-hmm.
3 words,
Mm-hmm.
I think,
Yeah.
were what
And I
got me
think
through.
I think those latter two are going to be something that people are going to concentrate a lot more on now that we've seen how easily,
Yeah.
I mean, all of these things we all took for granted can just be taken
Mhm.
away from us. And some of the things we don't really want to go back. I mean, I have
Mhm.
not been on a commercial airliner in over a year. I
Yeah.
could not be happier.
Yeah.
I mean, I just hated flying.
Mhm.
And it wasn't always like that, but now it is.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it's been a really profound year for a lot of people, and very different for a lot of people. My wife is a financial advisor, and she thrives on interpersonal contact with other people. She
Mhm.
serves on all these boards, and it's not, to watch her cope with this year and figure
Mhm.
out ways to feed herself, if you will. And now as things are kind of opening up again, and the vaccines, it's like watching a plant come out of the ground. She's ready, and it's exciting. It's
Yeah.
exciting to recapture. To recapture some joy and love for these things we just took for granted.
Mhm.
It's going to be, yeah, I'm looking forward to 2021. I think a lot of people are. And again, it is simple stuff, spending time with your family, seeing your friends face to face. Although I will say anything that gives you an opportunity to lie on the floor with your dogs cannot be all bad.
Right.
Just just as a matter of life principle, absolutely. I'm always, if I might, now that I'm thinking, maybe I should schedule 10 minutes of that every day. I know my Newfoundland would appreciate it. So, well, I tell you, we ask everybody who comes on the podcast 2 questions. So all of this has really just been a warm up for these 2 utterly crucial, hugely important questions. Number 1, if you could have a meal with any living public figure, anyone at all, who would it be and what meal would you share with them?
I found that so hard to think about, to be honest. And I really wanted to be super imaginative, but I will be honest and say, this is what came to mind, that if I had more time, I would have maybe, I don't know, have something more exciting to say. But I would love to have dinner with Marie Forleo, who is the founder of B School and has written a book called Everything is Figure Outable. And I think I would love to have a meal with her because she has supported online businesses for so many years across so many different industries. And I would just love to brainstorm what's next for all of us and how we can really become more sustainable, regenerative together. And the meal that I would have is kind of probably like a breakfast later in the day. I love breakfast so much. It's my favorite meal. And I think it feels extra luxurious and extravagant if you have it at like 4 p.m. or something.
I love it. Yeah. She is, she's a genius, for want of a better word. and her ability to apply a very a very keen intellect to a wide variety of verticals is not something that you see a lot. And in the work of hers that I'm familiar with, she has an ability to kind of cut to the heart of how different types of markets work, if that makes any sense. And I think, that would be a brilliant conversation. And I think we call it Brinner here, breakfast for dinner. So I like that idea, breakfast late in the day. That's a great plan. And that would be such a fascinating conversation. And I like the idea of, where are we going next? People who think, that's not a skill I possess. I might be able to look, but for clients, I can look out and go, okay, 3 to 6 months, here's where I think we are. Maybe in the next year, here are some trends. But to look in that macro sense and say, here are all these different influences, and this is what I think they're going to mean. Whether you're right or wrong, just that cast of mind, I think is really fascinating and a valuable set of perspectives. I love it. You are our first breakfast answer. So in addition to being our first international guest, also the first one to say we're going to have breakfast. I love it. I've gotten some wonderful answers to that question, and I am really grateful for how much people are willing to go with their gut, because it is a question that you can't, like, how long could you think about this to come? There is no perfect answer. So it's like, what's the first thing to mind? Oh my gosh, great. And fortunately, the question is not what one person do you want to spend all of eternity with? So it makes it a little less stress. The last question, and this is one that I've gotten such wonderful answers to, and I'm always excited to ask it of people because it sparks my thinking a lot, is, and you have been in this situation with literally hundreds of people. When somebody's starting out for the first time, regardless of what type of vertical they're in, what kind of business they're doing, if you could give them one central piece of advice, over a, dare I say it, a conversation out at a park who you just met like, oh my gosh, meeting somebody and talking to them, this would be incredible. Yeah. In the sunshine, and clearly the fairies would be nearby in those circumstances. But if you had that conversation, what one piece of advice would you give somebody just starting out?
I love that question so much because I get it all the time. And I think it's so important. I could say something kind of cheesy, but kind of very true, like, listen to your heart, listen to your body. But I want to ground that a little bit more and say, and share one specific exercise that I invite people to do because I think is really powerful and very fast and effective. So I'm inviting people to make 2 lists. And the first list is everything that you need from your business and your work. And that could be financial, of course. Most of us will say, I need to make a certain income. I want to feel financially secure. But you might also say things like, I really want to feel this freedom of, waking up on a Friday and saying the weekend is beginning now, or I want to, go for a 2-hour lunch sometime in the middle of the day, or Or I just want to really be discerning with the kind of people that I work with and surround myself with spaces that are fun and conversations that I really enjoy. It might also be I want to feel that my work is having a certain kind of impact. So many people are attached to seeing a certain kind of transformation or difference that I'm making in their work, which I think is beautiful. So really making a list and then prioritizing that by what is most important. And I think there's no shame in saying financial stability is the number one thing that
Right.
needs to
Yeah.
be covered. Otherwise, everything else is kind of a little bit
Right.
secondary. And then
Right.
making a second list with everything that you could be doing in your business. So you could probably start a new Instagram account. You could come up with a group program. You could start a Patreon. You could package your one-on-one offerings in a different way. You could overhaul your website. It's endless,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Usually it is. And so you have these two lists, and then you prioritize the first one, which is around your needs. And then you see in the second list with everything that you could be doing, what steps or which projects or aspects of your business will be the most effective in meeting your top three needs. And really let that be guided by letting it be easy and fun, which I think we so often forget. And often people first hear about this exercise and they're like, wait, wait, what? You're asking me to make this easy? And very
Get out of here. What
often,
are you doing? Yeah.
I know. And very often the projects they choose to focus on the first 6 months are not what they initially thought at all. They thought they needed to start with this one thing that everyone is doing, and they weren't
Mm-hmm.
thinking outside the box to see how can I meet my basic needs in the quickest way. And then I have all the space to add all these layers of complexity and other offerings in my business that maybe I'm also excited about, but they might not be as effective in meeting my most important needs. They might kind of meet the needs that are further down. But I think, yeah, if we are too stressed out about the basic foundations and feeling safe in our business, it's really hard to be creative. And I think this focus really helps in that. So I think in the first year, this is a great exercise to think about. And it also grounds this idea of listen to your intuition and your body, and makes it more tangible and less woo, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think creativity gets a bad rap because it sounds like, oh yeah, it'd be great if I could just sit at the kitchen table and draw. And it's like, no, 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 no. That's the point is everything you're doing, especially if you are responsible for running a business, is essentially an exercise in creativity because you're constantly problem solving. You're constantly coming up with ways to do things. That is inherently a creative exercise. And so many of us get into, even after we've started the business, I think because we don't go through that exercise that you just did early on. What do you need to get out of this? Why are you here? And what are the most important things? Financial stability. Okay, great. And on and on and on. And then you go, what are all the things you're thinking about doing? Which of this second list is the most likely to help you achieve the big things on the first? I mean, you're not shocked. I'm not shocked. Yet it is shocking how few people look at things that way. I mean, we've had people, oh, well, I need to be on Facebook. And we're like, why? I mean, I don't think your business is going to be, well, not really, the businesses that are on Facebook, that's for sure. So to have that kind of thoughtful moment, especially early in the process that says, what do you want to get out of this? I think is hugely important. And it's so funny because that question is often the most important question at the end of a business when somebody's had an offer to buy their business. I've got a lot of friends who are entrepreneurs, and I've spoken to many of them when they've, oh, somebody's going to buy our business. And what do you think? And my answer's always been, are you done working in that business? I mean, are you done with that business? If you're done with the business, if the painting is finished, go ahead and sell it. And if it's going to get you, what do you need out of the sale? What are the top three things? Oh, well, what's the most likely to do that? So I think that's a lovely way to think about getting started. And it's something that, everybody could stand to really sit back and look at probably every year at the very minimum and probably every quarter, and sit back and go, okay, what do I need to get out of the next quarter? What's going to happen? So I love that. That's a fantastic piece of advice. And I do want to respect your time. Again, our guest is Yarrow Magdalena. Her website is yarrowdigital.com, YARROW digital.com. I highly encourage you to check it out, especially if you're a small business owner who has gone to an external small agency like ours, like we do marketing for businesses all over the country. But go check this out because I love your approach. I think it's going to resonate with a lot of people who do not find, who wouldn't be a good fit for us, because that's not how we approach problems. But, like you said, everybody is different. What's going to work and be really fulfilling for some person is not going to work and be fulfilling for another person's business. So absolutely check it out. Look at the tab for free because I love this 30-page. I just can't let that go. I'm sorry about that. You've got so many great resources. Thank you so much for coming on. Hang out here a little bit. We'll chit chat after we're done. But again, thank you. It has been an absolute pleasure. And we absolutely wish you the best and hope you get to see your family again soon.
Thank you so much, Andy. It's been amazing to talk to you. I loved your questions and I really am glad I got to talk to you.
Thanks for joining us. You can find contact information about our guest in the show notes for this episode. This has been the How I Make Money podcast by Brand Distillers. To learn more, visit branddistillers.com.